Hello, everyone. This is Wade Franson, host of Created in the Image of God, the role of religion in society. Society is also, of course, in the modern world, defined by democracy. I have with me in the studio for a sneak peek recording of a future episode, politician, ex-politician, author, thinker, Anne-Marie Waters, who in 2020, November 2020, to time with our previous American election, wrote a book called In Defense of Democracy. Welcome to the studio, Anne-Marie.
Thank you, Wade. Thank you for having me.
So in 2020, in November, this is before January 6th, the infamous January 26th, you wrote In Defense of Democracy. How were you so prescient? How did you know that this was a topic that would consume politicians' thinking, at least in terms of their political stance and their political sound bites, right? This election is about defending democracy. How did you see so clearly that this was on the horizon?
I think it's a case of they protest too much. Wasn't it Shakespeare who said, I think he doth protest too much? I think politicians on both sides are now using democracy. I'm the Democrat. No, I'm the Democrat. These arguments, I think that's symbolic of recognition that democracy is actually disappearing. You don't defend something robustly if it's safe. You defend it when it's in danger, and it is in danger. And there's several reasons. A large one is the media. Media coverage is simply not accurate. In the 20-odd years I've been involved in politics, I have seen the media deteriorate to the point where it is now it's clownish. It's unintelligent. It's inaccurate. It's deceiving the public, such that we are no longer going out and voting based on the truth. We are voting based on whichever media outlet we happen to get our bias from. So if you're on the left, you'll get your biased coverage from CNN. On the right, you'll get it from somewhere else. The media is a huge problem. This is one of the reasons our democracy is disappearing. Another, which is never addressed, is the rise of communism. Not since Thatcher and Reagan have any Western leaders truly identified communism, fought it, and called it out for what it is, which to my mind is an evil system that destroys the individual human being. It is hugely influential in the United States and the United Kingdom particularly. It's in Europe too, but particularly our two countries, and Canada and Australia. In fact, English-speaking countries, I think, are particularly vulnerable to communism at this time. We have Maoist tactics. Cancel culture is a Maoist tactic. They used to call it struggle sessions. It's the destruction of a person who expresses a view that is not in keeping with whoever happens to be in power at the time. We have criminals allowed to walk free while political opponents are jailed or convicted on what is trumped up convoluted charges. That they may even be accurate charges. But the fact is, someone went to great trouble to twist and bend the law, if you take Donald Trump as an example, to twist and bend the law to get him on something. They were going to get him on something. Meanwhile, you have, for example, the Black Lives Matter riots, which caused destruction and death all over America and here, and very little was done. The police stood by and watched criminal damage take place in front of them because they are politically on side. So criminal offences committed by those politically on side, nothing is done. The minorest of offences by someone who isn't politically on side, and the system goes into overtime to get that person convicted of something. That's also communism. That is an example, a symbolism of communism. That's where we are falling very fast into communism. And I think people realize that, and that's why they feel so what's the word, motivated to defend democracy. Like I said, if you don't defend something if you think it's safe, they know it's not safe.
Well, so you've just listed a number of reasons why it needs to be defended and what it needs to be defended from. I have to make a comment here in terms of my personal beliefs, which is that I am a Baha'i, and it is literally against my religion to be involved in partisan politics. And so there may be some Baha'is who are right now shrinking in horror from this discussion. So I want to clarify something for everyone. And that is that one of the things you called out was the need for the independent investigation of truth, right? Without all this media spin and bias, which is in some ways considered the number one principle of the Baha'i faith. And that is what this discussion is all about. Secondly, you raise communism, which was labeled as a false god or a false idol by one of the founding figures of the Baha'i faith. And thirdly, I want to talk for a moment about socialism, right? Because it's associated with Karl Marx naturally. And Marxism is in my view, my personal view, a seditious method of fomenting discontent in order to effect a treasonous overthrow of the government.
Absolutely, well said. That is exactly what it is. And then, of course, it used to be class. The Marxist, socialist, communists, I understand they have mildly different definitions, but essentially it's the left, isn't it? It's the extreme left. They are absolutely, the class was their rallying cry. They tried to stir the working class.
And allow me to interject. That is now failing because people realize you can move up in class. There's a book that says America has a caste system, which I soundly reject. You are more socially mobile in America than anywhere. I lived in Europe for like 13 years, many of those as an adult working, and I came back to America because you are more socially mobile in America. You can change your class in America easier than anywhere else on the planet. But race, you cannot change.
Exactly, which is why critical race theory has become so influential and so important. And it is, as you mentioned, it is the exploitation of previous. So if you go back to pre-civil rights USA, it's the exploitation of grievances from that era to stir up racial division and because you can't, like you say, you can't do it with class because people want to move up to the class. And I agree with you, by the way. America is a young country. It's a big marketplace. It's full of vibrancy. Europe's a little bit older and a lot older, and our class system is entrenched in a way that America simply isn't afflicted with. But now they're using race and they're using grievances to stir up division between black and white, and to use black people particularly, but non-white people overall, to overthrow the system. So they will go after the police, for example, and it's always race. They attack police on racial issues all the time. And the idea, of course, is to force so much internal change in policing that it changes itself out of all existence. And then it'll chip away at the system, it'll chip away at the Constitution, guaranteed. They've already called it, I've already known of it be called a white document. Wait for that. That's going to get more and more prevalent.
With seditious activity spreading and the removal of law enforcement, you have chaos and anarchy, and then a new system can emerge.
Absolutely, absolutely. Which is another, language is also under attack for that very reason. The law is based on language. It's based on the objective understanding of language. If you can say that a man can put on a dress and become a woman, then the word man and woman no longer have objective meaning. This is part of the destruction of language, to my mind, which in turn destroys law and order, which is based on language.
Well, Anne-Marie, I cannot wait to have you on the show on July 16th after the release of a paperback version of your 2020 prescient forward-looking book, In Defense of Democracy. And we will dive deeply into these topics. Everyone listening, you'll want to be there for this discussion.